Ukraine was able to eliminate one of the top employees of the Russian military-industrial complex. This person was one of the key engineers of Putin's missile program and was directly involved in the killings of peaceful Ukrainians and the destruction of our infrastructure.
He is a unique person, truly without exaggeration.
His developments helped Russian missiles fly further and more accurately. And they created new challenges for a number of Ukrainian cities.
Indeed, it reaches Odessa, it reaches Kharkiv, theoretically there's Dnipro, Kyiv.
What was the Deputy General Designer Mikhail Shatsky, who was eliminated in Moscow, working on? What successes did he manage to achieve? And how did Ukraine respond to his missile modernization? And most importantly, which of Putin's dreams will now remain unachievable for a long time? We will tell you about this right now, in the Arsenal. His body was discovered at dawn on December 12, 2024. The corpse found in the Puzminsky Forest Park near Moscow was almost immediately identified. The person shot was the leading engineer, Deputy General Designer of the Mars Design Bureau, Mikhail Shatsky.
If the satellite indeed failed there and remained there, it is extremely critical now for this kind of communication.
The attacker fled the crime scene, and the press immediately speculated about the involvement of the Ukrainian main intelligence directorate in the elimination. And not without reason, because Shatsky was not just any engineer. His main work in recent years was the modernization of Russian X-59 missiles and X-69 missiles, as well as the development of new types of drones.
He is a unique person, truly, without exaggeration. He is not just a Buryat tank operator of whom you can recruit 100 to 500,000, and it doesn't matter how many died, you can recruit more. He is a person with a big mind, yes, with extensive knowledge, but he worked for the wrong side, and he was the instigator, the organizer of the process of developing the Russian missile industry, the modernization of missiles.
At the same time, his main achievement, as noted by Russians, was his extraordinary ability to organize the work process. He could gather the best engineers, secure funding, and implement numerous ideas that were dangerous for Ukraine.
Previously, for example, they made 2 units a month. He could organize the production of 4. If earlier they had a range of 700 kilometers, for example, he modified them to fly 1,000 kilometers. That's it, that at least for the short term, it was put to an end.
The last and perhaps the main creation of Mikhail Shatsky was the Russian cruise missile X-69. More precisely, its modernization to the level of X-69.
It is a subsonic cruise missile, meaning its speed is up to 1,000 km per hour. The flight range is up to 300 kilometers. There were projects which implied increasing the flight range.
And these projects were successful. Its range increased to at least 400 kilometers, and the maximum deviation from the target is now approximately about 5 meters.
What concerned the Russians was in fact the idea that it turns out you can actually create a long-range missile for tactical aviation, but of a type that they usually hang under a strategic bomber. They struggled and struggled, but indeed in 2015 they showed the first model of this X-69. And by the end or middle of approximately 2023, they reached serial production.
The very first use of such X-69s completely disabled the Trypilska TPP near Kyiv in April of this year. At the same time, for the launch of such a missile, the Russians were able to use tactical aviation for the first time instead of strategic aviation, which significantly increased the number of carriers and complicated the detection of the launch moment.
Currently, this X-69 was launched from tactical aviation aircraft, namely the Su-34 and Su-35. That is, simply the usual use of strategic aviation immediately triggers such markers when the Russians take to the air. The MiG-31, which carries the Kinzhal or the Tu-22M3 or the Tu-95MS. And Russian tactical aviation is constantly in the air, and you can't detect on the radar what might be hanging there. Whether it's just a guided aerial bomb or a certain type of cruise missile.
This is one of the problems, as the detection time is reduced. The second issue is that it flies quite low to the ground. Its terrain scanning mode is well developed. And it seems that the guidance system is already well established. It's inertial, the satellite navigation system utilizes advanced electro-optical comparison with the actual terrain.
It is worth noting that the X-69 was an attempt to respond to the West. That was the task set. We need our own Storm Shadow. However, Russia has not yet reached the desired performance.
Russia wants to create a missile that would be launched from under the wing of tactical aircraft. That is, from aircraft like the 157th, 135th, 130th. And the range of this missile should be up to 1,000 kilometers. In principle, the whole world has such missiles. If we say the Shadow has a range of 560 kilometers, arguably it can operate at 980. The JASSM operating under the 16th wing at 980 kilometers. Russia hoped creating such a missile.
However, with the elimination of one of the leaders of this program, the seemingly approaching result once again falls into the category of dreams. Meanwhile, after missing the first attack of the X-69, on the Kyiv region, the air forces conducted serious work on their mistakes.
This is not the first Russian weapon model. Initially, there are some such applications under mysterious circumstances. No one knows how to deal with it. It manages to cause some very significant damage, and then they look for ways to deal with it. We've already been through this with the daggers, even with those with the Shahins.
Naturally, the solution found. We are not going to announce it. However, it can be noted that in subsequent missile attacks, the Kh-69 was repeatedly successfully shot down, along with other missiles launched by the occupiers.
These are all solvable tasks. We shot them down like all regular missiles. Let's talk about the Kh-101, Kh-555, like this 5500-55, about the main cruise missiles and calibers. The interception rate reached 85-87, even 90%. This is significantly higher than NATO standards.
At the same time, despite the serial production of Kh-69 missiles, the Russians have far fewer than they would like. It is precisely for this reason that work was organized to upgrade the old Kh-59 to their level. But it also entirely depends on imported components, which due to sanctions are becoming increasingly difficult to obtain.
The production of Kh-59 missiles is established. It completely and entirely depends on supplies through gray schemes. But overall, this production is stable. It is adapted to the conditions of sanctions, but it is insufficient because Russian aviation needs to launch dozens of missiles every day. They can only launch them at targets.
Did you like this video? Then don't forget to give it a like and be sure to subscribe to our new Arsenal channel. The link is in the description below the video.